This is wavy glass! This is a glittery jumpsuit I bought on clearance from Goodwill, and this is Jess Paul. Welcome to Double Wrecked Radio Weeks. I hope you guys are happy. On social media, I asked you exactly what you wanted to see, and we're getting a little personal today. When I held my polls, it was kind of split down the middle for the most part, except for this guy. But all I kept thinking was, ¿Por qué no los dos? So here we go. Yeah, I'm going to do my ultimate top 5 bands of all time. Is that redundant? Maybe. And I realized that in those bands, I had some deep cuts too, some of those secret bands that I'm just going to give to you anyways. Freebie. And just to define secret bands, because I put that out there without even defining what that meant. Some of us have bands that like nobody's ever heard of. Whenever you talk about how much you like a certain band, you basically are met with radio silence. And to be honest, I really could only think of 2 that I really liked. So now if you ask me, what are your top 5 favorite bands of all time, Jessica, like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 years into the future, this list might be different. I know it's supposed to be the ultimate, but to be honest, the bands that I really feel strongly about at any point constantly changes. I've always been somebody who's never been ashamed to be always evolving, always finding new things, and replacing my current favorites with new ones. It's probably why I'm never going to get married, but I do believe that it's healthy to always be finding new things and discovering more about yourself in the process. But without further ado, let's just jump into the list. I guess in a particular order? Yes, this is in a particular order. At the same time, I feel that my top 5 is always swapping in and out with each other. These bands are kind of always jockeying in front of the other ones just because, again, I can't make up my mind. But let's just start somewhere. Let's start with number 5. My top 5 favorite band of all time is Say Anything. So I believe that Say Anything is a very special band because they have a very particular voice that I feel not many other bands reflect as well. Max Bemis and Say Anything have this theme of kind of bitter, cynical, sarcastic, clever, angry bi white guy, and I just relate sometimes. But Say Anything was one of those bands where if I look at their catalog, I can pick out individual songs that over time had become my favorite song for the moment. That's another thing. If you ever ask me what my favorite song of all time was, I'm gonna have to give you like a top 70 list, because at different points in my life, there would be a song that was speaking to me or very important to me, or I just couldn't stop listening to for one period of time, and then a new or different thing would kind of overshadow it. If you want a starter playlist to get into Say Anything, I recommend Mara and Me, Cemetery, and Hate Everyone to really get that Say Anything vibe. And you will all notice that all of those songs are on the Say Anything self-titled album. I never stopped listening to them and any of their old and new material. My number 4 favorite band of all time is actually our first deep cut, our first secret band, and they are Big Wreck. So when I was younger, even before Wrecked Radio, one of the ways that I discovered bands and got into rock and roll was a little strange. I think it was pretty unique. Me and my family have this hobby of going to garage sales. One thing that I just always loved about going to garage sales was not only the dirt cheap items, which are 3 words you can actually use to describe me, but it's that you're literally looking at somebody's life packed up into cardboard boxes and being put into like a 25-cent bin. Especially when we're talking about a CD collection. That was a collection or individual albums that really spoke to an individual. And now you can pay a quarter for them. This is how I really discovered REM, Live, Nirvana. I started with Nirvana's In Utero album, which is completely backwards, but it's what was there, and that's why that album of Nirvana's was so important to me, because it was kind of my intro into the band, my personal foundation of the band. But also, I would pick up these corporate compilation CDs. Yeah, companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Surge, I'm naming all the ones that I have, American Eagle, they would put out these compilation rock albums. They picked a lot of bands seemingly that were on the rise or were kind of cool. They were like about to be cool, and they would kind of predict the market. And also I'm assuming that they were trying to sell a sound. In essence, an aesthetic. Like when you attach a really cool song to a movie or a commercial, you're attaching some bands and some songs to a brand so that if you like those songs, you also will like the brand. Whatever. One of these bands was Big Wreck, and they are a Canadian mid to heavy rock group. They kind of fit in with that 90s kind of radio rock sound. Really nice instrumentals paired with kind of a Chris Cornell sounding vocalist, but still with an individual message, sound, and some really nicely written songs that I just adore. And I just always thought that they never got the recognition that they should have for being as talented as they were. Your starter playlist for Big Wreck are How Would You Know, which is the song that I discovered on the Coca-Cola compilation CD, Blown Wide Open of the same album, and Your Glass House, which was from a later album. All of their albums, which I like, and they are still making music to this day. They just came out with an album in 2019, and I am going to see them in a week here in Los Angeles. So excited. Haven't been to a rock show in a long time just to kind of go and enjoy it. So I'm going with my BFF Val, and we're going to have a good time. And my favorite album would be the one that started it all, In Loving Memory. My number 3 favorite band of all time is actually another one I was going to include in my Secret Bands video, even though they are internationally a pretty popular band, but I feel like not enough Americans really know about them or care about them, and that is Placebo. Speaking of soundtracks, that's actually how I found Placebo. Actually, not even just a soundtrack, a commercial. Probably one of my top 5 favorite vampire movies is Daybreakers. I think it's very stylish, it's very modern, it's very unique as a vampire movie. But probably one of the reasons I was ever drawn to seeing it in the first place was the fabulous pairing of Placebo's cover of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill with the movie trailer. I do remember like literally sitting in my living room and just watching television, and this commercial comes on, and I'm just so drawn by a melody and a voice that I am just entranced, and then like am sold to want to see this movie. And then I immediately looked up Placebo. I had like a handful of their songs on my iPod for quite a few years, and then a couple years later I rediscovered them and just dove in. Placebo's kind of a industrial Euro rock band. I actually, fun fact, for years had no idea that they were English. The singer sounds so American, like uber American, that I heard him speak one time just talking on a recording, and I'm like, why does he have an accent? I also really like the style and kind of the appearance that they put out into the world. I am a kind of person that's very attracted to spectacle. I think that a good rock band is made better by some showmanship. The band, I think, for a long time went through a lot of is controversy the right word? Just because the lead singer, he wears like a lot of makeup and at some point had long hair, so like everybody thought he was trans, but he's not. But I always loved his style. Besides Running Up That Hill, so I can shove another song in there, your starter playlist for Placebo would be 36 Degrees, Exit Wounds, and Jesus Son, and Ashtray Heart. Honestly, I could make gigantic playlists of all these bands because I just obviously love so much of their music. My number 2 favorite band of all time, and it's even odd that I feel like they're a number 2 because I feel like they've been a number 1 for a long time, but that's just because my moods always change, and it's gotta be brand new. I think there might be a trend with me starting on bands kind of late. There are very few bands where I was like in there in the beginning because I always felt, even as your host of Rec Radio, Jess Paul, that I was always late to the party when it came to a lot of bands. I don't know if it had to do with my age compared to the kind of music I liked, or if it was just that I gravitated to some bands' later work. But with Brand New, I was always very interested in a lot of the marketing and a lot of the themes behind their album Daisy. And so I finally just kind of typed it in one day. I was always like, I don't know what that album's like, but I want to check it out. And when I did, it was one of the best things I'd ever heard. Then I actually had to go backwards from that album and discover their older music. I kind of binged it all at once, and it's one of the reasons that I don't give a shit about their first album. Like, I feel like it doesn't even belong in their catalog, because Brand New was a band to me that started off as being the very most generic pop punk sounding kind of act, and over the span of 4, now 5 albums, they completely found their own sound, and we watched them do it through all of their tracks. A lot of people will pinpoint Deja Entendu as one of their biggest albums where they really took off and were at their pinnacle, but for me, God and the Devil Are Fighting Inside Me, which is probably not what it's called, but I can never remember the name of that album, and Daisy, I feel, are where they really found their stride. They're dark, dead, kind of emotive and incredibly dramatic storylines in their songs and in their albums. And they are a band, like pretty much all of these, I would literally listen to them for weeks on end. And a lot of their songs marked a lot of periods in my life that were really important to me. So when I listen to certain songs, I kind of have certain memories, as a lot of us do. And they will probably forever be a very important band to me. Your starter playlist for my version of Brand New that I like is In a Jar, Jesus Christ, and Noro. Noro being definitely always my favorite song that the band has ever created. And obviously, if I haven't expressed it enough, my favorite album of this band is Daisy. Next up on my list, we're actually not going to go to number 1 right away. We're going to have an honorable mention, which I never knew if that meant like a honorable number 6 or an honorable almost number 1. In this case, it's like an honorable almost number 1, and it is Fall Out Boy. You did not think I was going to have a top 5 music band without putting Fall Out Boy on here. Fall Out Boy was not only a band that I like for their music. Excuse me. I'm trying to film here. Fall Out Boy also was just a very significant band in my life. Fall Out Boy was the band that kind of launched Rec Radio. They were a huge focus of my show. They were one of the first concerts I ever went to with my friends in college. I feel like I watched them evolve and kind of was part of it over the years. Obviously not personally part of it, but like I just feel very connected to them and all of the changes they went through. We were able to change with them. I know it's getting pretty sentimental, but that's just how I feel when I think about Fall Out Boy and all of the years and all of the changes I kind of went through with them. And without them, I don't think a lot of other bands would be the same today. Not necessarily saying that we need a lot of copycats, but I think that they really defined this subgenre and helped to make an entire new generation of music. Your starter playlist for Fall Out Boy are Coffees for Closers, Thriller, and My Songs No, which I know is a very, very popular single of theirs. It literally was their second chance at life, and it was so impactful when they came back with it after quite a few years of not being around. And it was probably one of the coolest redefinitions of a band that I'd ever seen, to be one thing and then come back as another and just take the market completely over again. And the album that I want to feature today is Folie à Deux, because I consider that album one of the earliest albums I ever talked about on Rec Radio. It was the concert that I went to go see. I literally remember listening to Fall Out Boy and Fall Ya Do when my BFF asked me if she wanted us to go to the concert, and like after that my life I feel like was changed for the better. So I think about Fall Out Boy fondly. And my number one ultimate favorite band of all time is, if you ever paid any attention to anything I've ever said on this show, you could probably guess it's Third Eye Blind. Besides classic rock bands like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and then like pop rock groups that kind of transitioned me into rock and roll, Third Eye Blind was probably one of the earliest kind of true rock bands of the genre that I still like to this day, that I really just became obsessed with. There were other bands at the time, including especially Matchbox 20, that was really, really important to me. But over the years, I feel like Matchbox 20 kind of got tired out for me personally in my favoritism. But Third Eye Blind never did. Third Eye Blind kept impressing me, and then of course they kept putting out new music and new albums over the years that I fell in love with. They keep being good, or keep getting better, or keep being different somehow after, like, you know, since I remember literally as not a teenager, not even a preteen, as like a 7-year-old, just being in love with Jumper and how it's going to be, I mean, Semi-Charmed Life, before I even listened to the lyrics and understood how inappropriate that song was to even be on the radio. Speaking of growing up, or binging a rock band, or falling in love with every single song one at a time at different points in my life, Third Eye Blind definitely takes that cake. As a lot of you know, my first interview for Rec Radio ever was Third Eye Blind. Total fluke. If you are interested in Third Eye Blind, you want to learn more about that interview, you can go right around here. And you can watch that video, after this one is done, to hear about my first ever interview and how weird that was. But Third Eye Blind got me through a lot of stuff. Third Eye Blind was there when I grew up. I don't want to cry right now. My makeup took so long to do. They spoke to me just like a lot of other bands do to other people, that you find not only like a general appeal, like you generally like the sound of a band, but you feel like they really genuinely spoke to you. And they changed your life in even just like a very superficial way. Is that a word? A way that's not really apparent to the outside, but it changes you as a person. It helps you grow up. All of these bands speak to me. They're all important to me for different reasons. Oh, I'll give you a starter playlist, even though I literally recommend any album and any song of Third Eye Blind. But for my personal favorites, I'm going to say Losing a Whole Year, Faster, honestly just because I want to pick another song from another album. But I literally could pick any song. Motorcycle Drive-By, I'm picking another one. And Red Star. Red Star was on one of their EPs. And it's funny, it's like one of those, either like those B-sides or those EPs that like you love the song so much you don't know how they're on, like not a number one single, but like, you know, you at least found it, and I just would listen to it over and over again. And my favorite album, again, it was incredibly hard to pick because I love literally all of them and almost every single song that Third Eye Blind has put out, but I'm gonna go with the self-titled first one because it is the one that started it all for me. Oh, I actually was with that band since the very beginning. Third Eye Blind I was with like the whole time from the beginning, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're so personal to me. Literally, childhood, teenhood, college, they were there the whole time. So let's compose yourself, Jessica, so you can freaking end this video. Those are my top 6 favorite bands of all time. I hope that you enjoyed them. I enjoyed talking about them. I could talk about my favorite bands all freaking day long. If you want a sequel, which would be like the next 5, or maybe a different category, maybe like my favorite female rock bands, answer this in the comments though. And if you answer this in the comments, I know that you've stayed till this part of the video. And it is, okay, tell me your favorite band of all time. obviously, but also tell me how you discovered them. I love you guys, and I will be seeing you. Oh my God, we forgot to spin the wheel. I already asked you the question, so we're just gonna wait right here. Vlog. Great! We don't do enough vlogs on this channel. Jessica, would you ever start a vlog channel? Nobody asked. No, I would never start a vlog channel. I think that's a really stupid idea. I know that a lot of my favorite YouTubers have vlog channels, but I don't understand. Just put it on your regular channel. If we're all our own brands, why do you make a different channel that I have to find and look for all the time? Just put it on your channel, and then the people that don't want to watch your vlogs, they won't watch them. So, yeah. Maybe I'll do Vlogmas this year too. I was kind of considering it since I kind of revamped my show. You guys can tell me if you watch it, because if people don't watch my Vlogmas, that's a lot of work to do for nothing. Wow, I didn't even do that last time. What's wrong with you, Jessica? We usually don't have a specific sign off, but we do for Wrecked Radio, and it's peace, love, rock and roll. See you later, bitches. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.